a player who refuses to share the spotlight with an incel, to a player who doesn't care about anything other than himself. I'm Saya from Tabletop Mayhem, and if you enjoy this type of content, please be sure to subscribe and ring that bell so you don't miss out on other RPG horror stories from Reddit, like our stories tonight that focus on some really deranged players. Our first story. Another player calls me an incel for rolling too well and that I was playing a toxic and overpowered character. We only played 3 sessions together, all of them online. The players were me, another guy, and 2 girls. We were playing in a homebrew campaign, and the DM told us a bit before that the setting was about a world where a world was still recovering from a war that had happened several centuries ago and left most of the world uninhabitable and cursed. The backstory for my character was that he used to be a half-orc who fought in the war. He was gravely injured, and that his body turned into that of a warforged. That's pretty cool. However, the artificers making him were attacked before he could be activated again and remained deactivated all the time. I love this. The rest of the party found him in a ruin, and he somehow became activated. Basically, I just wanted to play a badass paladin, and I also got really lucky rolling stats. I didn't have any stats lower than 10. Okay. The DM thought my character had a cool story and a badass design and let me play. The rest of the party didn't have a problem except one girl, Jess, who was playing a tiefling rogue from a royalty. She hated how my character had been introduced differently while the rest of us had met in a bar. The war my character had fought was against demons, and tieflings hadn't existed back then. And by some coincidence, both the girls were playing tieflings. Do my characters keep their distance, which I thought would make sense, but she didn't like that and said it was sexist and racist, even though the other girl didn't mind. Also, the other guy was playing a soldier, half-orc fighter, so to me it made sense that my character would trust him the most at the start. In character, the others asked my PC about his family, and he told them he had left his wife and child when they had been called to arms and regretted it every day. Just out of character, started calling that an incel fantasy, and that my character had every red flag imaginable. She also hated that I had an high AC and did lots of damage, like paladins do. We got into an argument, and the others had to stop the game because she kept insulting me. She later sent a long message saying she doesn't want to play with us because I'm an incel, and left the group. The DM asked later if his cousin can play with us. Wow. Ooh, somebody's jealous. Aw, poor Jess. First of all, Jess, that's not what an incel is. I don't know if you know this, but men had to leave their wives and their children behind when they went to war. That was a very common thing that has happened in history. And a man is probably going to use that for his fantasy background in a game with the same kind of, storyline, if it's about a war. I mean, I thought that this was a perfectly fitting storyline. I thought it was very creative and very fun. It leaves him open to having ancestors he possibly could find. It's great. I think it worked really well into this homebrew campaign. But that's not what an incel is. I think what had happened is that Jess got a little butthurt when he got this really cool introduction, and it was a cool introduction. Like, I feel like this player brought this idea to the DM. DM's like, awesome. What ideas did you bring to the table, Jess? Did you want to be introduced in a cool way? I'm going to tell you why I think Jess has main character syndrome. I mean, it's obvious, but I'll tell you the red flag that I got is when she tagged royalty onto her character description. It's not wrong to want to be royalty. Like, it's cool. You're working with D&D. It's probably your only time that you could have these really cool fantasy royalty moments. But when anybody wants to play anything that's attached to royalty, it's always a flag to me because it's usually paired with this air of superiority, and that's not how we make friends in D&D. So it's something like I have to be really careful with when a player is like, oh, like they're a lady. And I'm gonna tell you, my very first D&D, like real D&D character, I played D&D when I was like 11 with my brother, but like my very first real campaign, I played a elven Duskblade, and was she a Duskblade or Eldritch Knight? I don't know. She was like some sort of like magic wielder. Oh, she's Bladesinger. That's what she was, Bladesinger. My very first character, I did have her be tied to royalty. It's a very new thing that you want to do. I'm also a lady, so I made her like she was the queen of the moon elves, like sisters, freaking like, I don't know, grandchild. She was a lady, And like my DM was really cool about it, and like he allowed me to have a lot of ties, but because I traveled with humans, they didn't give a shit. They were like, man. And so it worked out fine for the campaign. And I did have an air of superiority, but mostly because I was an elf. But I fell in love with these dudes that I played with. I had a great party, and they really, you know, we really grew really well together. But I had an excellent DM who would really help me navigate that. And I think that I'm not blaming the DM for the situation. I do think that a character came to him with a really good idea, and he used it. Jess came with nothing, and he just, you know, he has to introduce them somehow, you know. So nobody's really at fault. It's just that someone provided more. Why a DM is absolutely going to jump on that. That was an excellent interaction between a DM and a player, and I love that. But that's just my own little flag, and I'm only saying that, and I don't want to get judged for it because I also did that. My very first like real D&D character. It's just a little bit of that. Oh, this person's gonna have a little bit of main character complex, and I did have one. Everything was about me. So I give advice because I know what it's like, and I know how to overcome and learn to share. And so I'm not just sitting here on my throne of I'm better than you. Like I've really gone through a lot of these situations, both as a player and as a DM. So, but what a crazy thing to have 2 half-orcs and 2 tieflings in a party. That's a crazy dynamic. That might be cool. I hope that Girly Pop finds a campaign that works for her. Honestly, it just feels like she might be a little new to it, and I think that she might be a little young. Some of the things she's saying just don't make sense. So I'm hoping that she just, you know, gets into a game where she can experience how, you know, it's best when everybody's treated equally. Everybody gets a special moment, and we have to be patient, and we have to support those special moments when the spotlight's not on us. And that's something about being like a gracious player and wanting to be invited back to tables, is knowing that like not everything's about you all of the time, and it's best to always be supportive to other players. So with that, sorry Jess, it sounds like they're gonna have a great game without you. I want you guys to know that I really try to vet my stories and find stories that go together, stories that have the same vibe or the same theme to make up an episode. And I also try to make sure that my episodes are a little different from episode to episode. I want to make sure that it's new and exciting for you guys. But with that being said, it is very hard. It's becoming very hard and harder to find stories that are not licentious in nature. Not that I mind those stories, but I feel like a lot of what is out there is just people who are struggling to keep it in their pants. So with that being said, our second story is a friend asked me to DM so he could flirt and tries to cancel the game when he gets rejected. I mean, it sounds great. This happened almost 10 years ago, but I was thinking about it today. D&D 5e had just come out, and I had started playing when a friend of mine asked if I could run a game for him and a few of his friends. I'd known him for over a year, but I've never met the other players. It was my first time DMing, so I went out and I bought a DM screen and ordered a player's handbook. The plan was a weekly game. We play at my friend's house where I met the other players and everyone made characters. It was 4 guys and 1 girl. The players: Warlock, Friend and Problem, Druid, the girl, Fighter, Paladin, Rogue. I found out that the Warlock was attracted to the Druid about an hour into the session when he suddenly pivoted conversation to aggressively press the Druid on why she was with her boyfriend in real life. She was taken aback. Oh yeah, was she? Was she taken aback? Jeez. I did my best to steer the table of strangers back to the game from an awkward silence after where Druid talked to the Warlock about why this was inappropriate. Good for her. Good for you, girl. Jeez. The next session, they walked around town and found quests. All throughout, Warlock flirted with her character and announced that his character found her sexy whenever he could. Druid was a halfling and Warlock was a half-elf, so I said it would be weird. He made a joke about her not needing to go down on her knees, so I moved on. My God. We didn't meet the following week. Oh, I wonder why. And I started to get into DMing, so I took the time to really dig into the game and design my first dungeon. I put a lot of effort into a haunted mansion. Then the day before the 3rd session, Warlock texted me that he decided to cancel the game. He felt that the players were flaky, and that he could not play with such an unreliable people. I told him I wanted to at least run the next session because I had worked really hard on it, but he refused to play and said I couldn't do it without him because it was his game at his house. So I did it without him. We met somewhere else, and one of the druid's friends joined the warlock's place. They liked my dungeon and had fun, so I decided to continue to run the game. It went on for 3 years, and I still play with two of the same players today, 10 years later. That's amazing. As for the warlock, I found out later that he had asked the druid out and been shot down, prompting him to try canceling the game. Our friendship more or less had ended there. I saw him occasionally for a few months, but he got super weird and possessive. The rest is not really related to RPGs. Okay. I like the story, not for the content itself, but how it ended, and how it ended on such a positive note. I do think that this is a pretty common issue that groups of players can have, mostly because we're social creatures, and, you know, feelings can develop, or, you know, if you're playing with a group of friends and you've known these people for a while, I mean, you might have crushes on people that you've never really, like, you know, dealt with. But I think that aggressively calling somebody out in the middle of a game in front of a bunch of people, that's humiliating. I mean, that would be super embarrassing. But I have to say props to how the player handled this, the little druid being able to, you know, talk to him about how that was inappropriate. I mean, I think this is a great example of a DM and a player doing everything right when they're faced with a situation like this. So it's really nice to see a healthy game. And I say that minus this guy who is no longer a part of this campaign. I found this to be really humorous. But I'll tell you right now, as a DM, if my friend asked me to do that, especially as a first-time DM, where you have to learn, he made a financial investment, and he had to do, you know, an emotional and a mental investment, having to learn how to do this, just for him to be a scheme to flirt with this girl, and then when it didn't work out, just to end it all, we would no longer be friends. I don't know what other thing was going on, but the fact that he still remained friends with this person until something else happened, no, that would have been the absolute end of my friendship. That is so disgusting. I mean, I just, like, you must have I tell you how selfish this person is. He's not even thinking about other people's feelings or anything like that. So, I mean, he doesn't deserve it. But I do love that we got to see the birth of a DM. that was a little much. But not only that, like, the fact that he was a successful DM, that this game continued for 3 years, and that he still 10 years later plays with 2 of the characters, tells you that he is a wonderful DM. And it's wonderful to see an origin story. And yeah, like, I think that this had a wonderful outcome. Well, there you have it. 2 trash players who took themselves out. I'm really interested in what your horror stories are. I mean, you have to have 1 or 2. We all do. I could share a ton of my own personal stories, but I'm really interested in yours. So if you have any, please share. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you next time.